Hello everyone. Hello Senate Chill, Providence. Hello lads. How are you? Seen some of you in the chat in the event already. Hope you have a good early afternoon so far. A okay-ish New York Open, we can say, but let's not jinx it too hard and let's let it develop a little bit before making any kind of big conclusions. I'm gonna wait a couple of minutes for people to join and yeah. And then we start. Hello Luap, Crypto Data, Evil Jiminy. Hello everyone. Nice to see you guys here for this fifth public stream. I'm alone today. I'm gonna try, depending on what Bitcoin does, if it remains good and if it doesn't do any kind of big fuckery, which to me right now would be a retest of the 104, 105 region. If it doesn't do that, I think we're gonna spend most of our stream doing some chat requests. Please zoom in a bit more on your chart. It's very tiny to see on my laptop. I don't know. It seems good for most of the people, but up. I can increase the size of the police. In any case, Evil Gemini, no worries. I'm gonna be discussing all of that in a couple of minutes when more people are able to join. Once the New York Open has unfolded a little bit, it's quite a busy one. With SPX being at a place where, yeah, gonna need some sort of bull posting from the boomers to save the lower time frame momentum, which I believe is what Bitcoin could need to at least chill. But again, we're gonna discuss all of that in more details in a couple of minutes. Pierre, can we look at Popcat? Okay, you know what? Let's do the usual chat requests. We are May 21st. Is it like this? Yeah, it's like this. Okay. Popcats. But yeah, we're gonna, so yeah, plan for the stream. First we discuss Bitcoin and ETH H4 daily. I'm gonna be discussing, if you guys want a little bit more of the recent exposure that I have, trades that I took, some focuses that I've had, and once we're done with that, we're gonna be spending some time doing some chat requests. So I'm noting the chat requests you guys are asking in the chat, but if I do not treat them instantly, it's because we're gonna spend a little bit of time first on Bitcoin and ETH. Yeah, with pleasure, especially it's been a big focus for me over the past few weeks. So I'm gladly going to discuss hype if you want. Hello Pierre Chester here, old student from Yavin. Big love to you, French boy. Hey, good to see you around, Chester. I hope you've been doing great. I hope that you've had quite the success on your trading. And yeah, long time no chat. If you have any chat requests for me, don't hesitate. I will cover them. That's the main goal of today's stream. For your information, likely that I'm going to stream again on public stream next week. Not confirmed yet. Likely going to depend on the way current Bitcoin price action develops and if we have any kind of fun things in the shitcoin world happening, basically. But I might do another stream next week. So far I have Popcat, Michi, Hype, Pepe. I can't check Gala. Hello Red Sparrow. Been following you on Twitter for a while. First time catching a stream. Nice to see you around. You are going to be able to put a broken French accent to your next time from here. When you're gonna read my tweets, you're gonna read them with my broken English in your mind. I don't know if it's going to make them better or not, but yeah. Martin, unfortunately I have to go in 30 minutes, but I'm planning to watch the stream back tonight. Can you take a look at GMT and ARB? Yes, I can. We have also AIXBT, that's noted. Ça va, l'accent est pas si mauvais. The accent is decent for someone that speaks more English on a daily basis than French. To be honest, it's fine. It's fine. I can say thank you to my. I cannot say I learned English in French school. I learned English in the Counter-Strike servers back in the day. So for a long time, the only thing I was able to say was Rush B and drop up, please, basically. But I guess the accent is not too catastrophic. There are a few words I'm always struggling with. One of them is differentiate. That's one word I just can't say. To the point where I've been looking for synonyms of the words on the internet. So now I'm trying to say discern, but I'm not even sure it works as well as the initial meaning. But anyway, so yeah, hey yo, Lamis, I hope you're doing great, brother. I've been thinking about you a lot lately as I've been watching and a lot of fairly liquid coins bottoming process. We've been scooping some with Krillin eventually lately, and I was thinking about you because you were always the first one to ask for chat requests with those kind of setups in the Haven. So I thought about you the other day. I hope you're doing great. I hope you've had some great week and months of trading, and yeah. 9 out of 10 accent. Okay, you guys are too kind with me, but I will take it. Have you ever been to the Netherlands? Yeah, I've been to the Netherlands a few times. The last one was in August last year for the F1, the Grand Prix, the Formula One Grand Prix in near Amsterdam. I was invited by Coinbase to go check that. Yeah, great place. Can't say I'm from south of France, and I'm more of the Mediterranean kind of Mediterranean / Alps kind of person. So Netherlands and overall north of Europe is not that much of my thing. I would not live there, but I always have a good time whenever I'm visiting these places. All right, enough yapping. Let's just start. So I'm gonna start with the Bitcoin H4 update because that's the first. To me, that's the main focus of the day and going into today. And then I'm gonna discuss the daily if you guys want. Then we can discuss ETH a little bit, especially considering that I've been scalping it quite a bit lately. So for your information, I will start with the chart where we are. I have my position going just to explain a little bit my thought process. Last week when we started to break a little bit the H4 trends, for those of you who might not have been here for the previous streams or who have never been in the Haven or seen my threads about that, very often and most often than not, when I'm writing a trend, one of the main signals I use to know if the trend is lost or not is checking the 200 EMA on the time frame -1, meaning that if I'm focused on writing the H4 trend and we start seeing some cracks, I'm gonna be looking at H1 200 EMA to see if it's retested, if it's defended, and basically if it's retested, I usually try to give it a shot for a long. And if it lost, it's a signal to me that the H4 trend is broken and I should back out and wait for the next trend. I'm telling you guys that because that was last week. Last week it was our main focus. Managed to catch this entry on the Monday. That was a nice compounding. Unfortunately, I kind of chickened out on the 2 following retests that we've had. There were less clean retests, and I'm usually less interested to play the second, third, fourth retests compared to the first one that usually gives a better kind of reaction. So I haven't been particularly adding to my Bitcoin exposure ever since Monday, 7-8 days ago, since that H1 200 EMA retest. And I've been taking profits as we've been retesting that 106, 108 region. And I'm currently holding half of the exposure that I've had running ever since that re-entry. I haven't been trading Bitcoin daily that much because I haven't had. My initial plan on Bitcoin was to long a daily EMA compression retest, and unfortunately we basically exceeded the compression, but we never retested it. So I haven't been able to position myself on the daily, but I believe we've done fairly great in the Haven, basically catching most of the move on Bitcoin so far. But I just wanted to highlight that just to say that last week my main focus was H1 200 EMA, and this week my main focus when it comes to Bitcoin H4 is H4 trend. I'm gonna explain why a little bit, simply because as you can see, entire last week H4 trend was not respected. We had close below, close above, close below, close above, hence the H1 200 EMA focus. And ever since we got that impulse on Monday, after the fuckery from the Sunday, we can see that the H4 trend is getting respected. We only have one retest, so it's not that much of a large sample to put big conclusion off of it. But to me, that was the main focus last week. For those yesterday, for those who are in the Telegram channel, I updated about that. Mostly because it was the retest of what was a must break / flip, simply because it's been a strong resistance through the week, and H4 trend confluence, so that was a very good one to focus on. I'm saying all of that because today basically we can apply the same thought process, meaning that ideally we want to see H4 trend retest defended if it's retested. So basically we can take the exact same squigglies and put them a little bit higher because the H4 trend has developed slightly higher. So my main analysis short term is on Bitcoin, we want to see H4 trend defended and defended if retested, especially as it's in confluence with this entire region that acted as a fairly strong resistance for the past 15 days. And as long as it's defended, as long as the H4 trend holds, I think we could have a shoot into the all-time high region. I don't want to jinx in too much, so let's just say that as long as H4 trend is defended, I would expect to see some at least consolidation at the highs and ideally some continuation. If H4 trend was to break, to me it would be a confirmation of weakness short term, which doesn't mean that I would expect to see things rolling over back to the 80s, but mostly to me, basically this squiggly over here, I would treat it as a signal that both trend and previous resistance failed to flip support and that we should expect some at least choke vest. In that scenario, I would be watching H4 100 MA with a lot of attention. Very similarly to the retest we've got for FOMC, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, that's the main idea on Bitcoin short term. If you need to keep one thing in mind, in my opinion, it's confluence of H4 trend plus the 105, 106 region is a must hold if retested. As long as it's defended, it's at least good to chop to the upsides, if you see what I mean. And if it's lost, put your alerts on H4 100 MA. And if it's retested, you have a potential opportunity for a long. And obviously, if it's lost, we go for H4 200 MA, which would be a retest that I would be watching very closely, because you can see that it's in confluence with daily 32 EMA, which is the daily trend, the lower part of the daily trend, and mid-range. We're gonna see that on the daily update in a minute. So that would be quite the confluence to long, if/when that was retested. But we are definitely not quite there yet. So far, H4 trend is defended. We are still seeing some strength into the New York Open. Just trying to think a little bit ahead and just in case. So yeah, keep in mind one thing, that's H4 trend mostly as a focus. Pierre, I have one in mind, but already pumped. It's on Binance, Mubarak. I just want to highlight one thing is that so far in the chat request, I've got Popcat, Michi, Pepe, Mudeng, Mubarak. That's already 5 meme coins. That says a lot. Exposure is exposure 100%, especially considering that I still have approximately 40% of the exposure I've had on our main swing from last year in the Haven off of that daily MMA compression. We are now quite far above my last take profits, unfortunately for me. But basically, yeah, what I would have wanted was a retest like this, but the market does whatever it wants to do. But it's fine. It's fine because, again, we've been, I believe we've been doing very great riding the lower time frame price action on Bitcoin. And I'm taking this as a big win for me because for those who have been following me for quite some time, you should know that, especially for those who have been in the Haven at some point in the past, or actually probably should know that lower time frame trading hasn't necessarily been my biggest strength since I started trading 7 years ago. But I've noticed the extreme improvement ever since I went full time in 2021, and particularly over the last 18 months, I would say. Mostly I would assume because it's been a very Bitcoin driven bull market and that I've been much more active on the Bitcoin charts. But yeah, just some self-dick sucking a little bit, but it is how it is. Screamy, can you explain a little bit on the -1, like what you're looking for exactly, like when to close? Is it a full body close below the 200 EMA or half body with stochastic to the downside? So to answer your question, basically one thing to keep in mind, my trend is 32 13 25 32 200 EMA, 32 H for 32 EMA is approximately H1 200 EMA. It's not perfectly true, but you get the point. Daily 32 EMA is approximately H4 200 EMA. What does that mean? That means that it's when we deviate below trend, to me, it's basically the last place that needs to be defended. So to answer your question, if I believe that if we have a deviation below H4 trend and we retest H1 200 EMA, depending on my exposure and the current context, like for example, if we take last week trades in the Haven, so let me pull up the charts. We got some closes below H1 200 EMA, but because we longed this one, I decided not to cut the position fully, even if that could have been an invalidation. So obviously it's very context dependent, but if on this price action we add a H1 close anywhere below H1 200 EMA, I would have cut. Because I was riding from below, got my targets. I'm fine taking it out and chasing a re-entry if we end up reclaiming it. So context matters, and where and how you've been positioned prior to the retests. In this kind of market environment, and by that I mean fairly strong daily uptrend, so trendy behavior, I'm gonna be vastly more loose with the rule of one close below and I close, mostly because it's a more friendly environment, because it's a trendy environment. If that was a long attempt on a first retest post beginning of the trend, like these H1 200 EMA retest that we've got at the beginning of the trend in the low 80s region, I would have cut the position. But because we are in a more trendy environment, I can be a little bit more loose. I believe that the higher the time frame, the more I'm gonna be strict with that, meaning that if I'm riding a daily trend, and actually you can have the example with last year swing long, this take profit in the 93s, 94K region in December was triggered because H4 200 EMA was not defended. So I would say that the higher the time frame, one close below is enough for me to at least secure profits and or cut the exposure, screamy. And on lower time frames, I would say that maybe having a slightly looser, like slightly less strict approach can be beneficial, mostly because lower time frame price action can obviously yield more fuckery, basically. But I would also say, screamy, play around with the system, play around with those 200 EMA -1 retests, and make your own rule on that. Like, I know, for example, that Krillin has a less strict approach than me on that. That doesn't mean it's a good or a bad thing. That's really dependent on how much you are willing to accept potential drawdowns and those kind of things. Personally, higher the time frame, basically daily, if H4 200 EMA is lost, that's enough for me to consider weakness and cut, and it's fine. Then you just have to wait for the reclaim or trend to restart. And actually, I think we have an example from the last few weeks of trading in the Haven. This region here, I closed the exposure because we had a H1 200 EMA loss, as you can see. It was, the first one was successful, the second one was lost. That was enough for me to cut the exposure. And then I waited post FOMC and H4 trend retests. In hindsight, I could have been more aggressive and beat the H1 200 EMA retest because that's something we usually do. But because it was FOMC, I was a little bit scared of the kind of volatility we could get, and especially how far we could wick. So I decided to let the FOMC happen I eventually long the H4 trend retest. And by the way, Screamy, I'm discussing that a little bit in the latest educational video I did in the Whoop library, if you want to check, when I discussed the gap fill setups. That might give you some insight of how I'm approaching the 200 MA and 100 MA retests. All right, quick words about the daily, while I'm holding myself not to shut the stream off and dance naked in the garden. I haven't done my daily detailed updates today because the main focus was and is H4 and H4 trend, as I discussed extensively already. But basically, not that much changes in terms of moving averages interest, beside the fact that we have the daily trend, which is at 99K 104. My main conclusion, seeing that, is we have quite the distance between I have two conclusions off of that daily trend analysis. The first one is that the distance between daily 32 EMA and daily 13 is quite big, meaning that flushes could dip lower than expected if we had any kind of flushes. But my second analysis, my second conclusion, is that we can notice that 13 EMA has been strongly defended. And one of the rules I have when it comes to trend riding is that the stronger the 13 EMA defense, the stronger the trend. And I guess it's absurdly obvious, because obviously the lower period EMA is defended, the stronger the trend. It goes without saying. But still, I like to say it even if it's obvious. So my main analysis when I'm watching that daily chart is daily trend must hold. As I said when we were watching the H4 chart, if we were to have a strong rejection from the all-timer region into a retest of the daily 13 EMA, the daily 32 EMA plus mid-range, I would 100% long that. And I would probably long it as close to H4 200 EMA and something like this. I don't know how the setup would look like, but I would be fine taking that setup. And the second thing that comes to my mind when I'm watching that daily chart is that we can see that the daily EMA structure, so daily 100 MA, daily 200 MA, daily 300 MA, they are all curving up for the first time since February. Meaning that to me, if this is a deviation, if daily trend is not defended, and we get a range low plus daily EMA retests, I would be compounding on my swing longs from last year. That's why I have the orange box over here, because it's a place I would be willing to bid with size if that was to be retested. But let's not jinx anything. For now, we are fighting with the all-timer region. So if you need to keep in mind one thing, in my opinion, when it comes to that daily chart, is set your alerts at daily 32 EMA and daily 13 EMA. So right now it's 104 and 99K. If you start seeing daily 13 EMA lost on the daily, you can consider it as a signal of weakness and prepare yourself for some bidding inside the range. But as long as it's defended, be happy, and life is fucking great. As usual when Bitcoin is up. It's quite the chart, to be honest. Huh? It's quite the chart. My dream scenario was a tighter compression like this into a retest, just like we had last year. But again, the market does whatever it wants to do, and it doesn't have to give that kind of gift every 6 months. But so be it. So be it. So if I summarize for Bitcoin, you have two main focuses in my opinion. Daily 13 EMA, which is currently in the 104 region, and daily trend in general that you want to see defended. Obviously the all-timer region, which would be a must break. All-timer right now is at 109, sorry. And on H4, the main focus should be H4 trend as a must hold. And the more it's going to develop, the higher H4 trend is going to get, the better it is for us and our latest trades, because it means that the invalidation for the exposure is getting higher and higher. Can you also give us some thoughts on SUI? I will be discussing SUI in a minute because it's one of the positions I have running. And actually, you just gave me a good transition. This is something I spam very often, both on Twitter, Telegram, or in the Haven. When we have spikes of volatility, lower time frame trends are absolute bangers in both direction. One, obviously, to ride the trend, but that sounds obvious. But most importantly, to not fade things too rapidly. Like how many times when we were in downside, for example, you can see people rushing into, like, let's take this H1 trend, for example. How many times some people have bought the dip in this H1 trend only to get wrecked and lose 4 air and needs plus 5 airs to get profitable after that. While you can simply wait for, you're gonna miss the bottom, extremely likely, but if you at least wait for the lower time frame trends to be broken, you have a higher chances that local bottom is in at least, meaning that right now to the upside, if your ends are, how do you say that, burning, and you feel like you want to be the hero that shot all-time high region, in my opinion, at least wait for the lower time frame trends to be broken. And if you are actively looking to compound on your exposure, H1 trend retest can be a good focus also. I prefer H4 trend personally, because it's been slightly cleaner over the past 72 hours. But yeah, so that's my main thoughts when it comes to Bitcoin. Pretty standard for anyone that's been following the streams or following me on Twitter for quite some time. This is very basic. This is extremely basic trend following approach. And the funny part with the Bitcoin price action recently is that I usually divide my system in, when it comes to trend trading, in 3 main parts. The first one is EMA compression, which comes after a period of consolidation and which is a very good way to time a potential full reset and therefore avoid the entire chop before and start positioning yourself. I just showed the daily example from last year, which was probably the best one ever. You basically have the strong trend, wide gaps, you avoid the chop, and when things get tighter, you start positioning yourself. So that's usually the first part. Then comes the strong trend, and post trend we have gap fills. And so far on this entire leg up, we've had the 3 parts of the system playing out quite nicely. So for those in the Haven who have access to the WOP library, you can probably have some trades and some templates, some trades to take off of the templates shared. Bitcoin all-time high on stream. I will not allow any kind of jinxing that way, Mr. Viking. Please stop. You guys are not superstitious enough. That would be sweet, obviously, but again, let's not jinx it. Let's not jinx it too hard, please. Can you chat Vanry? Yes. So let's move on to the rest of. We've done Bitcoin again. Keep in mind, H4 trend, main focus short term, particularly as it's in confluence with the 104, 106 region, which would be a must hold / flip if it was to be retested. And on daily, that's the daily trend you want to focus on. So now we can move on to ETH. For those who were here in the last streams, you should probably know that for me, the 2 main triggers that I had to decide to focus on ETH, I basically avoided trading ETH over the past 2 years, mostly because of the strong daily downtrends that we had in the ETH BTC charts. And in my recent stream, I said that if / when we had the Trinity combo, I think that's how I called it, but I don't know if I have the... Okay, it's not on the chat. The Trinity combo for me to be focused on ETH is ETH BTC above daily downtrend, ETH USDT daily above daily trend, and BTC above daily trend. That's basically the Trinity to go long ETH. And we actually got all of that. And we have a good example of what we discussed earlier with Screamy to judge if we have a significant trend break or not. Let's take the 2025 first semester so far on ETH BTC. Strong daily downtrend and we can see that we have a spike off of above the daily trend, confirmation that daily trend is broken, H4 200 EMA is blasted through it, and it's the first time entire year basically since January. So you had the two confirmations. If I'm not mistaken, I actually tweeted that saying that for the first time we had a significant daily downtrend break on ETH BTC, and that was coming with the H4 200 EMA break. So ETH BTC main focuses, in my opinion, it's that confluence. The chart is a little bit messy, but it's that confluence of daily trend and daily 100 EMA that you want to see defended. It's going to be a big test for ETH right now and ETH BTC because we have Bitcoin approaching all-time high region. And if Bitcoin decides to go for a small move into the price discovery, how is ETH going to behave? Is it going to hurt ETH, or is Ethereum going to catch up some momentum and save this region up to daily 200 EMA? That's going to be one of the questions we have in the short term. You want to monitor the ETH BTC chart closely as Bitcoin is getting near all-time high. You want to see if you have any kind of strength and if Ethereum could have its chance to actually send itself. With that being said, so when it comes to ETH, I actually took a long yesterday in my scalp section in the Haven, off of a fairly classic thing. So this first position here is just me blindly following Krillin's call in the Haven. I would not have cut that position if it was not for Krillin sharing a setup. But this one is one that I was very interested in. EMA wise, it's a classic. If you remember what I just discussed, the three part of the system, EMA compression into strong trend into gap fills. So my idea was we have a potential compression EMA. So let me put up the chart. We have a potential compression on the H1 EMA, like you can see, wide gaps, compression, all of them tight together. And basically my idea was I'm not gonna compound now. I'm gonna let it exit the compression, and if eventually it comes for a retest of the compression, I'm gonna give a shot long, which is what we did yesterday. It already gave two targets, and I'm not compounding on ETH, mostly because, as I said, I want to see how it behaves as Bitcoin is fighting with the all-time high region. But I'm very much fine with that exposure for now. I'm very much fine with the setups we took. I'm gonna let it develop and see if the H4 trend... Sorry, the trading view is a little bit slow today. Yeah, I'm gonna let it develop. One of the main arguments for me not to rush into compounding is that lack of H4 trend behavior. If you remember what I discussed on Bitcoin earlier at the beginning of the stream, H4 trend disrespected, mostly chop fast, you try to focus on something else. It's a little bit the same thing right now for ETH. So I'm likely going to just let it develop a little bit, see if it prints a new H4 trend, how it behaves with Bitcoin pushing through all-time high region. And if we have a new H4 trend, I'm going to be compounding this actively. Right now, very happy with the setup we took yesterday. Happy to let it develop. Yeah. Nice trades. This retest of the EMA compression was a nice call. It's been a little bit shaky yesterday when it started to close below, but yeah. Okay, someone asked for Rune, so let's add Rune to the charts list. What else have I been trading? I've obviously been trading Altcoin a lot. Again, if you've been in the stream lately, I've said that was probably one of the assets I traded the most since early April. I've been very active in the Altcoin books. Not that anyone can notice my presence in the books. I'm a small fish, but I've been trading a lot Altcoin. The main idea was a second shot for that long that failed on Monday. Sorry. So wait for it to get back above the EMA set, H1 200 EMA, H1 100 EMA, and long aiming for the retest of the local highs here and here. So right now, in a perfect world, Bitcoin doesn't rig here, and we get to take more profits in the target 2 region. Not much to discuss on this one, but it's been a nice trade also. Hello, Breakless Rider. Nice to see you around, mate. So we've had that. Some Sol also getting into the target 1 region. It didn't give the compounding earlier today, unfortunately. Extremely similar thought process than everything that I just discussed. EMA compression, we have the confluence of H4 100 MA, H4 trend, meaning that you can enter with a not too far away invalidation. And it's getting to target 1 right now, so I should receive alerts that my orders are getting filled right now. Let me check, because I don't want to... I would prefer to have some profits secured in case Bitcoin gets rejected again from the all-timer region. So I'm gonna make sure that I'm taking some off. If you can give me a minute. Okay. But yeah, basically for Solana, if you're trading Solana, from here, what you want to see is a new H4 trend defended after this kind of compression. You want to see H4 trend defended, and ideally target 1 broken as the highs that were printed on the Sunday fuckery. And if we get that, I'm fairly confident we're gonna have our target 2 tagged not too far after that. So that's for Solana. The daily picture is also very interesting for Solana. Whenever it's gonna load. Mostly because, as you can see, we have a clean confluence of daily 200 EMA and daily trend. So that was a nice confluence to try to give it a shot yesterday. Looking very interesting and looking very promising depending on what Bitcoin decide to do. But if Solana was to manage to defend the daily trend, and yeah, that would be nice. But one thing to keep in mind when it comes to Solana, if we zoom out a little bit, is this 180-200 region. It's gonna be the biggest test for Solana across the chart. That's why it's the take profit region on any kind of long I will have. But yeah, it's quite the big level. It was our range high for the entire raging period in second semester 2024, so last year. Flipped support into the leg of the Trump coin, and flipped resistance at the beginning of the year. So it's a big level to focus on. So 2 main focuses to have when it comes to Solana. If you're trading on the daily, focus on the daily trend and daily 200 EMA confluence. So that's 160 up to 168 region. If it starts closing below this confluence, in my opinion, you set some alerts at daily 100 EMA and you wait. And the 180-200 region, which is a fairly big and wide region, but obviously a big one to fight for. All right. I'm gonna go into the chart request. I'm just finishing with the recent trades I took to discuss them with you guys. So that's one shot that I hesitated to take yesterday. I ended up not taking. I'm gonna explain why. That was in my scalp section yesterday evening. I was monitoring 2 things that I was willing to potentially short. The main idea I had was I was a little bit euphoric yesterday evening because Bitcoin giving targets I waited for quite some time. Other bags running nicely, especially grass. And I wanted to, I think that's what I said. I said hesitating to balance my euphoria by giving a shot on 2 shots, which was Init and XRP. And I ended up saying, I'm not triggering these. If we have some weakness, I believe there are 2 good candidates, but I decided to go for a midnight run. And if the setup were still looking good for me, I would be giving them a shot. And I eventually came back from my midnight jogging, and decided to just go to sleep instead, which in hindsight was a good decision. However, we had a very nice short end of last week on XRP. I just want to discuss it very rapidly because it's one of the core components of my system. I already discussed it earlier. It's the gap fill setups, which is something that I discussed a lot in my recent educational content in the Haven. And basically, how do gap fill setup play out? I'm actually, you know what? I'm gonna pull up the educational content that I used yesterday for my video. with three examples that we took at the beginning of the year. So we're gonna wait for the moving averages to fill. How those gap fill setup usually play out, and when am I focused on gap fill setups? I am focused on gap fill setups post strong trend, and when we have wide gaps between trend 100 MA, 200 MA, 300 MA, either to capture some downside in a momentary / alt of the trend, which usually result in a H4 100 MA retest into trend reclaim, not H4, sorry, 100 MA retest into trend reclaim and continuation, which we've seen on Bitcoin, particularly last year with that example over here. Strong trend, the trend breaks, we come for the 100 MA retest, trend reclaim sent. And if you remember correctly, it's exactly what we got for FOMC whenever it decides to load. Everyone is on TradingView, I would assume, watching Bitcoin do its thing, or maybe it's just my computer that's purely broken, but you can see it again. Strong trend, the trend breaks, 100 MA gap fill, it's defended, poof, back, trend reclaim, continuation. I'm discussing that because it's basically, as I said earlier, my system is EMA compression to spot the end of chop fest, strong trend, which is just basically do your best to ride the trend, and gap fills to capture the reversal, if any reversal, with clear targets and clear template to apply mechanically. And usually it's strong trend breaks. You can have an indicator that the trend is broken by using 200 EMA, as I discussed at the beginning of the stream. Come for the retest from below, fill the gap to 100 EMA. And from here, as I just discussed, if 100 MA defended plus trend reclaimed, that was likely a deviation, expect a trend continuation. But if 100 MA starts to break, that's usually a signal of full reversal, and then you have the possibility to apply the same setup all the way down to daily 300 MA. Not daily, to 300 MA, it works on any time frame, and we've seen that earlier also on Bitcoin earlier this year. Yeah, I just wanted to discuss that rapidly. I know that it's a chat request stream. You guys are not necessarily here for educational content video, but I believe it's one of the very good tools of my system. And if you can understand it and replicate it, usually it's some very good trades to chase. And I was discussing that, I can't remember why. Yeah, because we took a gap fill setup on XRP last week, and you can see everything that I discussed whenever it starts loading. If it decides to start loading, Jesus. It's gonna be a long stream if I have to wait 10 minutes in between every stream, everything's. Did we break TradingView? So yeah, XRP, we had a nice gap fill setup last week, which was, as I just discussed, strong trend breaks, strong trend broken, come for the retest from below, flip resistance. I actually waited a bit to trigger it because I wanted to have H1 200 EMA lost as a confirmation of the trend broken, and then target into 100 EMA and 200 EMA, which is the gap fill. And now it's actually looking quite promising because, as I said, we have the compression. You know what it reminds me? It reminds me of DXY weekly charts. DXY weekly chart from the end of 2023. Strong trend, the trend breaks, comes for the retest from below, fill the gap to 100 MA. XRP could be here right now, but we'll see. Anyway, what about hype? It's coming, brother. I'm going to start the chat request. I just wanted to discuss my recent trades, mostly because I believe that it's a good way for me to discuss why I'm triggering some setups, what I'm seeing, and if it can help some of you to understand a little bit more what I'm discussing and replicating things on your own, then it's a win for me. So I'm doing my update on setups, but I'm almost done. I only have Sui and Grass to go, and then we can move to the rest. No worries. Let's move on to Grass, which has been one of my best trades over the past 10 days or so. And it's actually another perfect example of everything that we discussed since the beginning of the stream. One of the main things we discussed since the beginning of the stream is checking the -1 time frame 200 EMA to see if the trend is potentially lost or not. As you can see, grass H4 trend get retested a lot. We have an initial spike up, and we have a close below the trend. I go into H1. I see a fight for H1 200 EMA, which reminds me the question from Screamy earlier, which asked, is a single close below enough to consider things lost? In that context, if Screamy is still around, for me, the confluence with this horizontal level was enough to have an invalidation slightly lower and wait for it to develop. But yeah, as I said, it's exactly what we discussed through the stream. H4 trend potential loss, I go in the -1 time frame, so that's H1. I check 200 EMA. If we are at 200 EMA, it can be a nice gamble to go for. And it's exactly what happened. We got the initial strong reaction into target 1, which was the retest of H1 trend plus H1 100 EMA. And then we have the close above retests of H1 trend plus H1 100 EMA, enough for compounding. I could have compounded again on this retest, but I felt like I did enough. And unfortunately for me, earlier today, grass has front run my third compounding. But it's been a nice trade. Once again, I think really slayed it. I'm gonna stick to that compounding idea, which is waiting for H1 trend retest, and even more if it's in confluence with this consolidation, which has some nice horizontal confluence. If I get it, nice. If I don't get it, I will wait for another opportunity to compound on this. But it's been a very interesting coin to trade, very trendy. I have absolutely no idea what it is, but I like touching grass. So, and yeah, I unfortunately, or not unfortunately, I won't say unfortunately, I have a quarter of my position left since that target 4. So it's not that much anymore. But again, if I get an opportunity to compound, I will compound. And if I don't, we'll wait for things to develop a little bit more. Okay, last one, and then promise, Omar, we can move on to the chat requests. Have you ever heard of Kita? Yes, I've already heard about Kita. I think it pumped quite nicely over the past few weeks, few days, maybe. I'm over exaggerating, or am I? Yeah, it pumped a lot. No idea what it is. I am an idiot that presses button depending if the price is above imaginary lines. You don't ask questions regarding fundamental analysis to me. I'm usually not the best for that. I've managed to survive in the market for quite some time without being an expert in fundamental analysis. So let's just say that I will continue to do what works for me. I'm just gonna share a small tweet saying that we're starting the chat requests after covering Bitcoin updates and recent trades. What's the English word? Recent trades. Explanations. Okay. Still, thanks for the educational part. Gotta learn how to fish with pleasure, brother. That's the idea. Thanks for sharing the thought process. Awesome. Love it. Your trade are extremely good, brother. Risk management analysis is elite. I cannot agree more. And particularly I would say execution parts. I think I've always had a fairly good read on the market, which to me is not necessarily a win. Over the past 8 years, I probably spent 12 hours per day on the chart, so I surely hope that I have some sense for the market. But yeah, as I discussed at the beginning of the stream, the execution has gotten better and better, and really to a point that I really wanted to reach when I went full-time in 2021. So that's great. GM, baguettes for everyone, 100%. Baguettes for everyone. Baguettes for everyone. I've seen people say happy all-time high, but I'm not. Did we? No, we did not. We did not printed. Oh, or have we? We actually did. We actually did. Happy all-time high, everyone. Fucking hell. That's fucking great. Happy all-time high. Happy all-time high. Congrats. Let's see. Keep in mind that all-time high region retests tend to be extremely volatile on lower time frames. So be careful if you're entering anything fresh right now, and try to focus on the lower time frame focuses that we are discussing. Be a little bit careful. And as soon as the stream is over, I'm going to dance naked in the garden. That's nice. That's nice. For 100%, I would not have bet to have a new all-time high if you asked me 2 months ago. 100%. I would have told you that you are out of your mind, which is a good reason why I'm not making predictions, and why I simply trade the chart as it develops. My thought process when it comes to prediction, and when people spend some time trying to make long time frame prediction, to me is, if it doesn't bring anything actionable to my trades, I try not to spend too much time in it. Nephew's 1 BTC already in profit. Yeah. My nephew's fund is probably outperforming a vast majority of the market participants. My first nephew was born in June 2023. Yeah. He was born on the 13th of June, so pick a bottom over here. And the second one was born in October. So another pick a bottom. And the third one was born last week. Slightly higher, but yeah, the nephew's fund is doing great. All right, let's go. These are the chat requests we have to cover. After I've done Sui, sorry, and actually, you know what? It's already in the list, so that's a good thing. So Sui is one of my dedicated threads in the Haven, in my trade ID section. This is usually, I open new threads when I know that I'm likely to focus on a particular coin for quite some time. And I shared 2 IDs, one short term, one more long term. The short term one is this long from yesterday. That was shared over here. Very basic. If you listened to my Solana long earlier with the compression of H4 trend and H4 100 MA, it's the exact same thought process with this long on Sui from yesterday. You can see similar structure, H4 trend and H4 100 MA compression. So that was an idea for H4, and I'm going to respect that. That's pretty fucking great. I would love to have target 1 ETH before any kind of fuckery across the board, just like on Solana earlier. But if you're more interested in higher time frame positioning for Sui, here is my view on the daily. And it actually gives me a nice transition for my last educational discussion for the day before chat requests. I discussed that my 3 core components are EMA compressions into strong trend into gap fills. In my trend following approach, I have something that I usually call ideal trend development. If you followed me if you followed me on Twitter for the past 2 years, that should probably ring some bells, as it's something that I discuss a lot. What constitutes a ideal trend development in my book? In my book, an ideal trend development is the confluence of a key horizontal level with trend catching up with that horizontal level, while stock RSI resets. Resets mean going from overbought to oversold. If we look at Sui daily structure right now, we have an horizontal level with that initial resistance that needs to flip support now. The trend that is catching up with that horizontal level, and the stock that reset from overbought back to oversold. So we have the three green lights for a potential ideal trend development. And this is why this is my positioning for a swing on SUI from here, outside of the scalp, outside of the trade that I just shared. And basically the idea, as I shared in the event, is entering from price of yesterday, which was 382, down to 3.55. Why 3.55? Simply that's daily 32 EMA. If you remember what I said earlier, I said that on Bitcoin, if I was to see a daily 32 EMA retest, I would give it a shot for a long, as it would probably be a last stand for bulls. It's exactly the same here. So that's why my entry region is from daily 13 EMA down to daily 32 EMA, which is the entire must flip region. And yeah, the rest of the setup, classic invalidation would be a loss of this confluence. This is why I like this setup and why I call them ideal setups, because historically, one thing I struggled a lot with, and that's because I'm a bulltard, was to respect my invalidation. I was always finding an excuse not to respect the invalidation. I was either telling myself, what if it's a week? What if that's a local low on Bitcoin and things sent after that? The truth is that by journaling, I realized over time that most often than not, you do better respecting your invalidation. And if it's not the case, that means you need to work on your invalidation. But over time, I realized that most often than not, respecting my invalidation has done me great instead of fucking myself. Which doesn't mean that I am free from being wicked out. You can have the perfect system in the world. You have always the risk of being wicked out, especially in a market like crypto. And you have always the risk of being faked out. And I have a perfect example of that recently on that SUI H4 100 MA long from early May. As you can see, long the H4 100 MA retest got absolutely wicked out, even if I cut it a little bit earlier before being stopped out, and then it sent without me. So it happens. I have never met someone with a system that was free from those kind of things. But one of the reasons I like these setups, and one of the reasons I focused a lot on this setup when I was trying to fix that mistake of not respecting my invalidation, is the first 2 points. I have a system that's based mostly off of simple horizontal level and respecting trends. If what I'm trying to ride is bullish, it should not lose or fail to flip an horizontal level, a support resistance flip, and the trend. If both are lost, that should be enough of weakness to back out and wait either for a reclaim, either for a daily or for a EMA compression retest below. And that's exactly the way I'm approaching SUI right now, as you can see with that setup, giving a shot to the daily trend retests. And if that was to fail, so if we were to close daily below my invalidation, I would be aiming for a EMA compression retest below. Exactly like I discussed on Bitcoin at the beginning of the stream, daily trend focus. If it fails, I will be watching a EMA compression retest. You probably noticed that I'm repeating the same thing all over and all over again. And that should be normal for someone respecting its system. But that should also start to make some sense if you're new to the stream, and that you should start to realize that I have basically 3 setups that I just keep repeating left and right. More up and down, but yeah. So that's my case for SUI. Potential H4, more tighter setup playing out. I might front run my target right now. I'm gonna let it develop a little bit, but if I start seeing Bitcoin stalling a little bit, I'm gonna manually take some profit off of that. And otherwise, yeah, this is the daily setup that I'm willing to go for SUI. So I'm going to share this setup with you guys. We are going to do the chart request now. We will finish the stream when all of that is covered. So we might have another hour of stream ahead of us. All of those charts that I'm going to cover today will be shared in in my free Telegram channel where I share daily updates on Bitcoin mostly. I will be sharing all of those charts in that channel if you want to join. I'm putting the link in the chat if you are not in that channel yet. You will have access to all of those chart requests and all of the charts that I done. So that's for Sui. You know what? I'm actually even going to share both charts up so that you can have access to both of the things that I'm watching. All right, let's start. Mudeng chart. Yes, Mudeng is over here, as you can see. Let's go. Let's go for the chart requests. So, okay, I remember doing that. Some nice gap fills again. Strong trend breaks, fills the gap to 100 MA, gets nearly by the resistance, front run 200 MA obviously. Unfortunately, I mean. But I think the main focus was more on the daily for me when it comes to Popcat. It was slightly cleaner on the daily. Okay. Another perfect example of the system. If you avoided Popcat all the time it was in a very clean daily downtrend and waited for the first daily trend break, you likely avoided the entire shit show and scooped a nice entry. You didn't get the Pico bottom, but I believe that it's a good enough entry, especially if you have not been bullied before. So I'm not necessarily going to go in too many details. I'm going to speed run a little bit the chat requests, but basically up we have a fairly obvious horizontal level here, which is in confluence with daily trends. D1 trend X, D1 key horizontal level. So that's obviously a must hold, meaning that you lose that's weakness. And here you have a fight with daily 200 EMA, which acted as a strong resistance over the past few days. This reminds me of the Trump chart on the daily. It's not necessarily the same chart, but the fight with daily 200 EMA. Imaginary coins for the win. So here is my main analysis when it comes to Popcat. Previous resistance, ideally want to see it flip support, so far it's the case. Daily trend needs to keep defended. The main gap to chase if we have a breakthrough daily 200 EMA would be a retest of the local highs. And the end target I would have, at least short term, would be a daily 300 MA retest. And if we get a daily 300 MA retest, we would have a full reversal of the daily downtrend. Once again, keep in mind what I discussed about the gap fill. If we reverse the chart, you can notice everything that I discussed for the other examples. Strong trend, the trend breaks, 100 EMA breaks, fill the gap to 200 EMA, and now if 200 EMA breaks, we fill the gap to 300 EMA. This is always the same idea. I think a potential setup would be something like this on the upside. If it was not sending straight away, for example, if Bitcoin was doing a little bit of a shit show first, ideally some compression like this between daily 200 EMA and daily trends. Otherwise, a short aiming for daily 100 EMA lower. These are the two main trades I would be aiming. This would be the no trade zone / compression. Oops. Okay. So yeah, I would not do anything in this current region, but if you get a daily close above daily 100 MA, daily 200 MA, sorry, I believe you can build a daily 200 EMA down to daily trend retests, and then you have this setup with local highs as first target. I would personally unload half of the position if that was retested, and you get an entry off of that, and eventually the end target would be daily 300 EMA. Okay, let's take a quick look at Bitcoin short term, what it is doing. Okay, it's the usual fuckery with the all-time high region. It's gonna be very interesting in the next few hours to see if this entire block is retested or not. The 107.5 down to 106. See if it's retested, if it shows any defense after the all-time high retest. That's the wrong all-time high because, but that's not the wrong all-time high, but that's not the all-time high shared by most of the exchanges. When I'm looking for basis of price, I usually check the Bitstamp chart, daily Bitstamp chart. It's one of the charts with the longest price history we can have on since 2011 on TradingView. Okay, so Popcat, it's done. Let's go to the next one. Michi. Sorry, I was just checking the news rapidly if there was anything. Yeah, it's that's a funny chart. It's probably not the right. I usually go on CoinX when I'm looking at those kind of coins. Another very good example of the system, if you avoided buying any dips on Michi as long as it was in the daily downtrend, it had the same daily trends from 0.38 all the way down to the first break, which was at 0.02. You would have avoided a 93% retrace or correction. I would say correction is a slight word for something that just did a 90% correction. But with that being said, looking at this chart, there is two things that I see as obvious to me. First, it's that horizontal level. It's a clear setup. It's a clear level for me, mostly because it acted as a fairly good support initially, breakdown, and now it's in confluence with daily 200 EMA. So up. What does that mean? It means that if we had to have a upside target short term, I believe that would be a nice one to have. So key V1 horizontal level plus daily 200 EMA confluence, just to make it as clear as possible. So we keep that in mind. And I have a second obvious level in the chart to me, which is these highs. These highs alongside the daily trend over here. And actually it reminds me quite a bit of the Popcat chart we shared in terms of the main IDs. Up local highs, which would be a good target to have, good intra target to have, local highs. So to me, a trades to take, and maybe it's too late, but I've learned that it's rarely too late, would be a daily trend retest alongside that horizontal level that needs to flip support and that has already been defended. Ideally, the higher the daily trend, the closer the invalidation you can have, and then first target at the local highs, and your main / last target would be that daily 200 EMA retest. This is the setup that I think could be doable for something like Michi. And obviously, just like for Popcat earlier, if the confluence of that horizontal level plus daily trend is not defended, it's your signal of weakness. Expect at least a retest of daily 100 EMA. So that's the case for me on Michi. Up. I'm going a little bit quick, but as usual, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask, especially if you don't understand something that I'm discussing or whatever. Yeah, do not hesitate to ask questions. That's the main goal of the stream. Chat request, but obviously if I can help you guys understand a little bit more what I'm saying, it means that you're gonna be able to understand my updates on Twitter or Telegram better, and it's a win for everyone. Hype, actually, this is the chart I've been focused on more. This is this chart. This is a chart that I shared on Twitter a couple of times now. And it summarized pretty well my overall view on hype. So first of all, again, if you respected the daily trend and waited for the first break, you didn't catch the pico bottom, but you avoided a minus 50% drawdown, I think. Yeah, 40%. To me, the approach I have on hype is exactly the same one as I have on Bitcoin short term, which is not short term, which is if I'm willing to long, I'm longing daily trend retests. I have not been able to do it well on Bitcoin compared to my lower time frame trading, but on hype, I've managed to catch some fairly decent entry. Unfortunately, not with the size I would have hoped, but it is what it is. But yeah, for me, if you're playing hype, personally, I would focus on daily 13 EMA retests, just like I discussed earlier for Bitcoin. And if/when daily 13 EMA is lost, then focus on the retest of H for 200 EMA. But basically, to me, there is nothing. Like, I believe that if market remains strong and hype catches some momentum, I think it can quite rapidly teleport to all-time high region. This entire place, we basically spent 0 time in there. We spent some time post airdrop and post initial leg, but ever since it's been a very strong resistance. So that's why it's I have to stop circling everything in red. But yeah, at strong resistance on daily right now, but I believe that there is, as I have written over here, I believe that there is hair between 28 and 32. And I would expect things to teleport if that was to be broken. But with that being said, if I'm willing to position myself on hype, that's primarily on daily trend retests. I need a little bit of water. I would focus on daily trend retests. If not, you can understand a little bit better why I'm saying that I'm only focused on the daily when it comes to hype. Outside of some scalps, at the end of last week, we took one hype scalp, if I'm not mistaken, in my scalp section. But compared to the daily trades, yeah, it was this one. But beside this, I'm mostly focused on the daily, and you can see why when you go into H4 in terms of how the trend is respected. You can see that we have very often deviations below and too much of a risk of being wicked out, basically. So I prefer to focus on the daily where the trend is vastly cleaner. And basically just what I do is just I set alerts following daily 13 EMA retests, and I bid when it's retested, and I do that until it doesn't work anymore. Which reminds me of my TRX, my Tron exposure, which is basically just long buy every weekly 32 EMA retest until it doesn't work anymore, which has been the same weekly trend since January 2023. It's the same approach on hype. I'm longing every daily trend retest until it doesn't work anymore. And when it doesn't work anymore, I will work on some bigger trades on retraces, no matter where it is, a little bit like I discussed earlier for Bitcoin. So my main view on hype for Joe Apple is key resistance fight right now with a key horizontal level. Daily trend retests are for buying until it doesn't work anymore. So basically, if we were to lose 22, so that's quite the big region, right? It's a 10% bidding region. It's fairly big, but that's also why you focus on higher time frame. You don't have to bid extremely aggressively. You can scale down to the daily 32 EMA. And yeah, I would expect this to be filled in one daily candle if/when we finally have a break through that resistance, which has been a resistance since January, basically. So that's my main view. I don't have a recent active trade on hype since our last trades last week, but I have some exposure that I'm just simply riding and waiting to see develop until next daily trend retest. So yeah. What's your personal opinion? Bitcoin holding or not ready for more strength? I don't know. It's probably not the answer you want to hear, but as I said a few minutes ago, if you asked me 2 months ago if I was expecting to see a Bitcoin all-time high, in the following weeks, I would have said probably no. So making predictions is not, like, it's pointless to me. So I don't know if it's going to hold or if it has more strength from here, but I can give you some potential answers short term that can help you decide or not. As I said at the beginning of the stream, for me, 2 potential factors of answers. First, SPX itself, is it still showing strength? Is it holding H4 trend itself, or is it starting to rug a little bit? And on Bitcoin, the H4 trend retests, because it's been defended since the beginning of the week, meaning that if during the next H4 candles it comes back for the H4 trend retest and it's defended again, I would expect to see continuation of the trend, obviously. But if it was to be broken, then that would be our confirmation that we might have some gap fills. So I cannot tell you if that's the case. All I can give you is some potential signals and things to focus on to have some answers. And to me, the answer would be what you can see written over here. Must hold H4 trend if slash trend retested. Sorry, you beat daily 32 EMA until the trend breaks. Yes, Nadim. I probably said that 10 times in 1 minute. Sorry about that. But that's how I work. I repeat things enough times so that my brain cannot come in the middle of my plans, and I respect my plans. Anyone in the Haven will tell you that I tend to repeat things a lot. First, because I believe that's how you learn, but also because it's a very good way for me to stick to my plans. If I say things enough, I have to respect it, right? Thank you. Sorry, I didn't catch the number. Yeah, no worries. Why 32? By the way, 32, it doesn't matter. The trend for me, as I said, it's a combination of 13, 25, 32, but it's mostly a reliquat from our days trading against bots on Binance and UOB in 2019 and 20. If you use 10, 30, it's perfectly fine too. Never forget that it's just imaginary lines. It doesn't have to be pico precise. The idea is to give you a sense of the trend, the short-term trend. But it's like anything in technical analysis. It doesn't have to be perfectly respected. You're going to have deviations. You're going to have weeks above, weeks below. That's where your experience and gut feeling has to play out. So again, I say 32 EMA, but 30 EMA is just as fine. Anything in between daily and 10 and 30 probably does the job just as well. The usual friendly reminder that these are just imaginary lines on the chart that help smoothing the price action, nothing more. It's just that, really nothing more. Pepe, which I fumbled the trade yesterday. And it's a shame, to be honest, because I had all the good reason to hold the position. I had the confluence of UB, Krillin, and Loma, and yet I decided to bail out. But extremely similar thought process than for our ETH long that I discussed at the beginning of the stream. Retest from above of the H1 EMA compression equals long. And that was pretty much the case yesterday. But I decided to take the funds that I wanted to allocate to this trade somewhere else. And somewhere else was Sui. That I'm starting to regret not front-running my target, but it's fine. So, yeah, I fumbled that trade. With that being said, Let's update the chart. I believe I did this one during our last public stream, if I'm not mistaken. So I can just update the chart. It's less true. This is less true than it was a few days ago. Probably going to sound very repetitive, but this is pretty much similar idea than on the others meme coins. I think Pepe filled this gap to this key horizontal level if/when Ethereum decides to join Bitcoin. If Ethereum at some point between now and the end of the week, or at least until Friday evening, if Bitcoin behaves, meaning it at least holds H4 trend and doesn't do some crazy fuckery, and maybe, for example, in the coming night, like today, if Bitcoin closes strongly and we don't have lower time frame fuckery, I think we could have a window between tonight daily close and tomorrow New York Open for ETH to catch up. If that's the case, I would expect things like Pepe, like Ave. I don't even know if that's the right way to say it. I would expect these ETH beta to catch up with the rest. So Pepe could be a long just off of that hypothesis, but you would need ETH to catch up some strength first, obviously. In any case, exactly the same thought process than for Popcat and the others, meaning that you have your daily trend over here that you want to see defended. You have the local highs that need to be broken and the next gap fill. I would not be, unless we have some strength from ETH, I would not be surprised if the kind of price action we have next is something like this over the next few days. And we eventually fill that gap on a very short window of time. But if you need to keep one thing in mind for Pepe is that, to me, it's a fight about defending daily 13 EMA and breaking the local highs. And the upside target is the 1600, 0.00167, something like this, which is a obvious horizontal level when you zoom out a little bit, particularly at the end of last year was a fairly good defended post Coinbase listing, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was the beauty of EMA compression plus news. That was beautiful. Flipped support, the breakdown immediately followed by very strong daily downtrend, as you can see. So yeah, I don't think we have much more to discuss for Pepe. I would just say keep an eye on its daily trend development and on ETH behavior, as it's a ETH beta, obviously. I mean, obviously, it doesn't have to be obvious, but I consider it at least as a ETH beta. When I see ETH strength and I want to long something more than ETH, I'm usually going for Ave and Pepe. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I've been wired that way for quite some time. Someone asked for Gala. Gala, like the metaverse coin. Thanks, bro. Appreciate your depth responses as always. With pleasure, Nadim. That's the goal of the stream. I'm doing those public streams so that I can discuss all of those things with people following me. Can you look at BNB? Okay, let's add it to the watch. It's the last one I add to the watch list. Otherwise, we are going to be streaming until tomorrow morning. Yeah, ENI is a nice beta for if you're correct, Xenox. You're correct. I just init. Yeah, init. Okay, I can do init. AIXBT is already on the list. I can do init because it's going to be extremely rapid. I already covered it for the Haven yesterday. Yeah, ENI is also a nice beta for ETH, but I've had better success trading the other ones. Talking about ENA. Could be a setup if Ethereum decides not to stop being a bitch. Could be a setup. And you pay yourself over here with the confluence of local highs plus daily 200 GMA. It's a fairly clean horizontal level. Well, no one asked for it, but that was a fast one. Yeah, could be a decent setup in a world where ETH manages to catch up a little bit of strength from here against Bitcoin. Okay, I'm including it to the list of the chart requests. And then I'm doing Gala. I'm saying it that way because it's been a while. So Gala chart request reminds me of the 2021 bull run. And actually, I think the last trade I took was it was a failed short, I believe. But yeah, if you want to understand a little bit more how crazy was the 2021 year, Jesus, man. Floor is lava. Voila, chart request is over. No, I'm kidding. Hey Pierre, I left the Haven a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, I remember you, Alex. But just wanted to say thanks for teaching your system. Took a small break from the Discord to practice the system on my own. It's been great. That's awesome. The main goal of the Haven is really just that. It's speedrun the learning process. Something that I wish I had when I started trading back in the days, and then buy on your own. And in any case, we always have our DMs open if you want to discuss trading and if you want to discuss setups. And eventually, if you feel like you could use more of the Haven, you can always join back. But it's always fantastic to see former members flying on their own. And actually, over the last 4 years, it's insane the amount of new city characters, new city traders that became quite popular, or at least quite followed, came in the Haven at some point. It's really great to see. I can see the system being shared left and right, or at least applied left and right. It's fucking great. So welcome, Alex, and with pleasure. If you have any questions, if you want to discuss some setups, don't hesitate to tag me on Twitter and wherever if I'm not answering. Okay, so Gala. Let's take a look at the daily EMA structure. So this reminds me a little bit of the ENA chart that we just did. We have this horizontal level with daily 200 EMA, obviously, which acted as a strong resistance. This is must hold daily 100 EMA plus daily trends. The only setup I could see could be something like this, which is a decent setup. Maybe you want to be greedy and bid lower. It's a decent setup, but unless we have some sort of news regarding the project itself or any kind of news involving metaverse from the past, maybe you can have something that gets more traction and liquidity to trade across the board. But if I had to focus on anything, that would be must hold daily 100 EMA and target upside daily 200 EMA for a gap fill. Everything that I discussed extensively through the stream. So this is me still just applying the system as dumbly as possible. Oh, I took a Trump long earlier today. I'm gonna put it on the chart. It's not a big one. I'm mostly just trying to play around a little bit, heading into so that was 14.5 entry, heading into the dinner. I don't know where it's gonna go, but that's basically the setup. I would like to have an opportunity to take some off in this region over here. That's why I had this target. Basically, take a trade off of it, try to make the best. And I should have followed CBS long yesterday. He shot a long basically at this moment. That was a very good long. Should have followed him blindly. if I have an opportunity to take some off in this region, I will, and then I will keep the rest of the bag until the dinner, I believe. But maybe heading into the dinner, this could be an interesting one to trade and could get some volatility and blah blah blah. Just putting it in the watch list, even if no one asked, mostly so that you can have an idea of things to watch. Back to Gala. No, Gala, we already did it. Yeah. So GMT, is it like Steppen or something? I think so, right? Just, or maybe it's not. I think it is. Yeah, it is. Let me check who asked for Gala and GMT. That was Martin asked for GMT. And Red Sparrow asked for Gala. Okay. Well, okay. Covered them. Oh, Red Sparrow, nice YouTube channel. I will check your channel later, Red Sparrow. Okay, so Gala, it's done. Red Sparrow, as I said, for Gala, there is potential setup to play around with, but yeah, it's not ideal. But Gala and GMT chat request, you guys are bringing me back to the old days, which reminds me of my best shitpost ever. But I'm not connected to Twitter on this PC. I disconnected myself earlier. Yeah, fuck it. But I guess everyone knows. If you've been following me for some time, you know what shitpost I'm talking about. Let's remove everything. Let's give you a reminder that this is the fate of all your shitcoins, so don't hold shitcoins. Okay, well, again, exactly the same idea that we just discussed. Strong daily trends. First gap fill to 100 MA, flipping 100 MA. We have fairly decent horizontal confluence here, which would be a must break. And by that I mean you want to have a daily close above this region. Here you have the confluence of daily trend and daily 100 MA. This is your must hold. And basically, the main gap fill you want to chase is this one. The one that goes to daily 200 MA, which is in confluence with that horizontal level right now. So that would be ideal, but it's gonna get lower eventually. Oops. Daily 200 EMA, up. So it's a bit of a tricky one. The main reason I say it's tricky one is because that is obviously an illiquid coin. And the daily trend is not very well respected so far. Like, we broke the daily downtrend, but ever since closed below, that was potentially a deviation, but closed below, which makes that's enough to be a little bit cautious and fighting to hold it right now. So you can have a setup like this that I would size really small so that you can have a fairly wide invalidation and you cut if you have a daily close below this region. But you want to have a fairly wide invalidation to absorb any kind of potential deviation in wicks. So probably the kind of setup where you want to size it small. In any case, you're aiming for a 50% trade. So you can probably size it smaller so that you can absorb a potential deviation. But basically, yeah, this would be the setup. But again, every time I'm seeing those kind of trades, my main thought process is I could be interested in such trades, mostly because if the market conditions remain good enough, sometimes you end up with some Dino coins, illiquid coins, giving a nice one-day pump 50% to clear the books And if you got lucky to be long before, you can have an opportunity to bag a 50%. But you can also end up holding that thing for ages and never see that pump again. And if GMT is strong enough to pull a 50%, could I not find something more trendy, more liquid, where I'm probably not going to catch a 50%, but could probably size up and end up with the same result? That's usually my thought process when I see those kind of things, but I understand the appeal to trade those kind of things. The gaps are very big, but it's always a fight between these two things. If I want to play that, I need to play it very small size and expect that it could very well just chop for ages and never pull the pump. Or I keep that funds and I aim for something more trendy and that gets more traction. That's usually my main thought process. Let's do some of the coins that are a little bit more watched. So let's do init because I know it's going to be very rapid. Here is my thoughts on init. I believe that any retests, it's fighting with a key level right now. I believe that any retest of this region is a long. Deviation below H4 200 EMA, get back above. I would be longing these retests. So that would be the setup could look like this. Same thing. You can size it. You can size it smaller. And if I don't get these retests, perfectly fine. We chase higher on the defined trend. It's perfectly fine too. But what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna set some alerts from 0.97 down to 0.92. And if we get a retest of this region, I will likely be bidding it. Okay. So that's for init. Manos, my main thought process, as I said, is a focus on H4 trend and H4 100 over here. You have a nice pocket which is in confluence with key horizontal level. Retest of this region is a must hold if it has more in the tank. Mudeng, which has pumped quite nicely lately, if I'm not mistaken. I have not been watching it much. Oh yeah, it pumped very well. I see an horizontal level here. Resistance, flipped support, breakdown, flipped resistance, retested. Pretty clean. Pretty clean. Astrology for men works. Okay. Okay. Well, obviously, daily trend can be a focus, but we're probably going to dive in lower time frame here because it pumped all the way back to this level without retesting daily trend once. So it's complicated to say if it has any kind of, if it's really relevant or not. Main conclusion watching this is H4 disrespected. We can see deviation below, deviation above, lost again. Complicated. I don't see an obvious / immediate setup here. You probably noticed since the beginning of the chart request that if I open a chart and I immediately see a setup or not. Here, vastly less clear to me. I would not be surprised if this keeps doing that. So I guess a H4 100 MA retest could be a long. Yeah, no clear setup for me. I would set up alerts. Yeah, above 0.27 at H41 was the min. And I'm gonna do that. No reason to force anything in that current price, in that market environment. Check H1. Okay, I'm gonna check H1. Maybe there is a compression over there that we can potentially do something off. Okay, I understand. I understand EP. I understand. We have an H1 EMA compression. It makes it tempting, isn't it? Okay, now I can see a setup. An aggressive one, but something like this. You give it some space in case it deviates a bit. Let's not forget it's a meme coin. Yeah, okay, I understand EP. I understand. I understand why you asked me to check the lower time frame charts. Okay, I could easily justify this setup. And if wrong, if this fails, I would assume chop fest mostly. It's you have a chance to turn that compression into something nice. Otherwise, as I said, we probably just repeat this kind of price action for quite some time. Okay. I will share both. So no clear plan on H1 on H4, but a clearer plan on H1. Let me organize the chat request for today. So we have the meme coins. Trendy coins. ETH betas. Others. I'm an idiot. I'm doing that so that when you look at the chat request after the stream, if there is one section that you are more interested than the others, you will know where to look at. Okay. Okay, let me share this real quick in the oven. Share it with Greenan. I know he likes this kind of H1 compression. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. Up. Okay, sorry about that. Just wanted to share this compression with Krillin because I know that is if he likes this kind of compression. And yeah, we like to share potential setups together. So, okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, I already did init. Manos, please stop spamming the same shit. I already answered you. I already told you I would be covering AIXBT. I did cover init. You just have to go back in time 2 minutes or whatever, but yeah. Do you think ads might have a little run when BTC slow down? Sorry if already asked. I said earlier that I would be watching very closely the ETH BTC dynamic, and that, for example, if by tonight Bitcoin closes strong and at least consolidates on lower time frame, I would not be surprised if we see a window between tonight's daily close and tomorrow New York Open window where alts pick up momentum and print some legs, and at least we would want ETH to do so. Basically what it did this night, it did it this night again. It had some spike post daily close for Bitcoin. Maybe we could get that again. This is something I would watch going into the going into the daily close. If Bitcoin closes strong, and by that I mean defends lower time frames, trends, then I think we could have a window where Partcoin gives target 2, Sui gives target 1, blah blah blah. So that's a dynamic to watch through the rest of the day, and how we close tonight, while keeping a close eye on the ETH BTC chart. It's something that I'm going to be watching tonight, basically. Likely not going to be entering anything fresh because I'm fine with the exposure I have right now on shitcoins. Outside of this unfortunate grass compounding not field, but can't catch them all. But beside that, yeah, no, I'm fine with that. How do you trade when there is this type of trade, like a clear one on H1 but not on daily? I take the setup where if the setup is clear enough on H1, I will take it on H1. I will take the setup on the time frame where it's the cleanest. If you remember earlier when I discussed HYPE, I said that HYPE was a coin that I rarely trade on lower time frames and try to stick to the daily because the daily trend is infinitely cleaner than the lower time frame price action. And with that logic, if I open a chart and I see a clear setup to take with a clear invalidation, no matter the time frame, I'm gonna give it a shot. The important word here is clear invalidation. I explained a little bit why earlier during the stream, because for a mid-curve trader like me, so not your Loma, CBS, or all those guys who are, in my opinion, talented traders, for a mid-curve trader like me, the clearer the invalidation, the lower the chance, the smaller the chance you fuck things up in terms of execution. So to me, it's always about, do I have a clear invalidation that I know I will be able to respect? And if that's the case, I take the setup. Where would trigger be for Mudeng? I think you could already position yourself here on the H1 setup. I mean, you have two options. Either you feel like you want to risk things and you position yourself here and your invalidation is H1 close below the compression, or you wait for what ETH did yesterday, which means you let it break through the H1 compression and you beat a retest, like the ETH setup from yesterday. You wait for the compression, you let it spike through, and you beat the retest. However, I would say one thing. For something that looks like this, I would... Yeah, it's... If I'm taking that setup with this kind of compression, I would do so on a reduced risk. This is not the kind of things I'm going 2% risk on the folio, obviously. This is the kind of things where if I get only target 1 in big quotes, that's already a 20% move captured. So you can adjust your risk and your sizing accordingly. Don't be an idiot, basically. All right. Mubarak. Jesus. What are the things that we trade nowadays? Nice. You see, if Mudeng gives this kind of continuation post-compression, that would be pretty sexy, isn't it? Again, remember everything we discussed through the stream. Strong trend, trend breaks, flips resistance, gap fill to 100 EMA, gap fill to 200 EMA, trend still acting as resistance, 200 EMA lost, gap fill to 300 EMA, compression, new trend. The entire system is on full display right now. For anyone that has access to the educational library on Woo, study these 3 chapters with the templates shared, when to apply them, when to spot them early, apply setups. So Mubarak, looking at it that way, I believe you could keep your focus on H1. Okay, it's likely going to be a H1 focus more than anything else. Okay, yeah, it's gonna be an H1 focus. We have the highs over here, which would be a nice target to aim and probably front run it. Okay, I have 2 setups off of that. Obviously, H1 trend, obviously, here, that's a must hold. H1 trend again, must hold. Long setup would be something like this. Obviously, that's just the ID, but defend H1 trend, and you have this setup. And if the market was to shit the bit from here, H1 trend, Jesus, that's it. My French accent is taking over. Gap fill to the H1 100 EMA. These will be 2 possible setups. Can we look at INA? We already did. You need to get back to a little back in the stream, but basically for INA, this is this daily trend, daily 100 EMA must hold. If it's done, you have an opportunity for a gap fill to daily 200 EMA, confluence with the local highs over here. It's your take profit region. If daily starts closing below the low printed on Monday, exit the position. Would expect ENA to catch up some momentum at some point if Vitalik coin, if Ethereum picks up momentum. So not necessarily the biggest gap to chase, but it's a liquid coin with a fairly good invalidation, so it makes the setup interesting. I would not long it here. I would wait for the retests. If I don't have the retests, you go on lower time frame, you wait for a setup to unfold. But as of now, the setup will be this one. The chart will be shared when I share all the chart requests on Discord later. But basically, daily 100 EMA must hold. It's the 0.367 region, and daily 200 EMA plus confluence of the February highs is your take profit region. And if that's broken, God bless, and you ride a new setup into a daily trend above the resistance. As clear of a setup as you can have. For continuation, I mean. Nobody says a word. Nobody says a word. Let's let Bitcoin do its live. I'm gonna add Mudeng to the watch list. Oh, init is actually sending. It's not sending. Okay. For init, because Manos asked, this is the view on init, Manos. Retest of this region are long. And otherwise, you wait for, if it never comes for the retest, you wait for H4 trend to unfold. All right, next one. Let's try to speedrun the rest of the stream. It's been 2 hours. I'm starting to get a bit tired. We discussed a shitloads of things today, but that's the goal of the streams. Okay, let's do the painful ones first. So that's gonna be ARB and BNB. ARB is 1-1 ENA. Like I can just take what I did on ENA and just repeat it. That's the confluence with February highs, daily 200 EMA, confluence of daily 100 EMA plus daily trend. This is must hold, and therefore the setup would be something like this. This is the same chart at ENA, which obviously makes sense. One, because everywhere where you have a trend, you end up with the same focuses, but particularly for shitcoins in the same basket. So it's exactly the same setup. Must hold daily trend and daily 100 EMA, target daily 200 EMA, exact same thought process. Like, this is the exact same setup. But I personally hate to trade this coin. Last time I did it was in this region, and I missed this short. I was waiting for this to break down, and I missed this retest, which was probably the cleanest retest we've had in ages. So I'm still mad. I'm still mad against ARB since that missed trade. But yeah, exact same thought process than for ENA. Okay, AIXBT for Manos, otherwise he is going to die. This is Trump chart all over again. Daily 200 EMA fight. Daily 200 EMA fight. Fairly clean horizontal level. Support initially. Strict resistance. Acting as resistance ever since. Daily trend must hold. Daily 200 EMA must break. Okay. I guess this would be the next gap fill / next target if that thing was to break out. So I'm not a big fan of positioning myself in this region. My main reasoning why is let's assume that you build a position here. If your invalidation is the loss of daily trends, you're basically getting out very close to daily 100 MA. If you set your invalidation below daily 100 MA, this is a 40% invalidation. So obviously, fuck no. I guess you could have an argument to try long this region, but again, it's extremely wide invalidation. I think I would be more interested in playing the strength instead of bidding. So I would probably just set some alerts above the highs that was printed last Monday. And try to play this gap fill, because we are talking about AI coin. So it's likely that this 50% gap is filled in one day. Like it had some 20% days, so that will not be too surprising. So I think my game plan on something like this is set alerts above entry, above daily 200 MA and local highs. If / when triggered, play a continuation setup aiming for gap fill. And that's it. That's probably the way I would play it. We can take a look at lower time frame if you want, but unlikely that I would play that any other way. I've got my target tapped on Sui. I just received a notification. Nice. Sweet. Uh, okay. Where were we? So that was AIXBT. Yeah, I would probably stick to that plan. Yeah, I would that would 100% be my game plan. But again, we are talking about extremely volatile meme coin shit. Yeah, AI shit coins. I can probably put that in the meme coin territories. Okay, 3 more, and then I'm going to drink some pints to celebrate the Bitcoin all-time high. BNB. One that I stopped trading since 2018, and that apparently I should have kept trading. Let me check where that that chart request come from. That was from April 2029. Well, maybe I should have. Maybe I should have. I did not take that trade. I did not take that trade. But that would have been a banger. That would have been a banger. What we discussed at the time was long here with an invalidation below H4 EMA. Yeah, makes sense. Okay. We have looked at Ethereum 3 times now. Yeah, I'm sorry, Michael, but what do you want me to say? Okay. Okay, well, fuck me, I should have taken that. No, some regrets because an obvious banger trade, but no regrets because I know that I usually don't trade BNB. It's the kind of coin that tends to fuck me over quite bigly. Okay. I can feel my brain working in slow motion right now. Okay, let's take a fresh chart. CZ is having fun in the order books. What was that? Was that the CZ is out of jail candle? No, that was in September. My bad. That was in September. That was not in June. In any cases, I see a fairly obvious long now. Maybe it's not going to come down for the retest, but confluence of key horizontal level plus daily EMA compression, that would be a long, aiming for the all-time high region. If it doesn't deliver, then try to play a daily trend retest. $6.12 up to $6.13, so 6.1, $6.30 with invalidation, loss of D1 EMA, and target all-time high region 2 in case no retests of D1 EMA. Wait for a new D1 trend to set and ride. BNB is a very trendy coin when it starts to move, meaning that if it doesn't come for the retest of the daily EMA compression, but it starts a new daily trend, in my opinion, you'll find missing the initial impulse and wait for the trend to be set. And for example, if you missed that initial impulse but long that daily trend retest, if you zoom out, you did great still. I believe it would be the same situation right now. So yeah, these are the two main ideas. Longer daily EMA retests, or wait for a daily trend to be set. Come on, BTC, make us proud. Okay, 2 more and then I'm fucking away. I'm fucking tired right now. It should be forbidden for a Frenchman to speak English for that long. Damn. Okay, so next one. Rune, a bit mad because I fumbled the setup on this one yesterday evening, which was off of the 15-minute trend reclaim, if I'm not mistaken. I still can't believe that in 2025, yeah, it was this setup overnight. Fuck it. I still can't believe that Rune is still a thing in 2025. How many times this thing is gonna have to be hacked or whatever before people stop putting their money in it. Nothing to work with on H4. Reminds me of Mudeng earlier, if you remember. BTC looks insane. I'm too superstitious to say it, but it does feel good. Jesus, man. Life of a jerky Thanksgiving. It goes up, we buy. Yeah, it's the best fundamental analysis. 100% Warwick. Was that you who mentioned Ruin in the Oven yesterday evening, Warwick? I remember someone mentioning this one. A very classic. If you watch the chart request today, it's the 13th time that I'm doing the same chart. No, only today. Okay. I remember someone mentioning Rune yesterday evening, but I can't remember who it was. Oh, it was Osselman yesterday evening. Um, 2 seconds, I just got a question I need to answer rapidly. Uh, okay. I have not finished that. Yeah, that would probably be exactly like the setup that we discussed today. Maybe it doesn't come for the retest of the daily trend anymore. Maybe it's enough for it to send. But if I was to take any setup, I would take a setup like this: a daily trend retest in confluence with a key horizontal level. And if it doesn't come for the retest, but you absolutely want to trade this, then you will have to dive in lower time frame and chase an entry. But the main setup I can see is this setup right now. Jesus, I can't. Yeah, I'm tired. That's it. That's it. That's it. Sorry if it's not the most detailed chat request. Unfortunately, it came in last after many more. After many more. So yeah, I remember Vanry fucking me over at the end of last year. What was that setup? That was a long on a H4 trend continuation. Do you remember earlier when I discussed? Do you remember earlier when I discussed trusting my invalidations more and realizing that most often than not my invalidations turn into resistance and therefore I should respect them? That's a pretty cool example over here. Okay. Oh, is if BTC catching up some momentum? A little bit. Well, if it can be enough for if to send, and therefore Anna sending a bit. Pepe, we said earlier, could benefit from some if strength. Yeah, we're seeing it now. Ave, this is tempting if sent. With all of that, I say must hold. Vanry. Okay. The signs of an illiquid coin. Too late to play on H4 in my opinion. That H4 200 MA retest was the long. And look at that. Isn't it the exact same chart all over again? It is exactly the same chart all over again. CRV, yeah. I just cannot trade CRV. It's forbidden in my rules. This is CRV is in the cooked coin watch list with things like Lido, etc. I don't trade those coins. I've been badly hurt before trying to trade them. I have a strong PTSD with those coins. But yeah, 100% CRV is on top of the list of the ETH beta 100%. So yeah, this is the exact same chart that we've seen all during all chat requests. And again, this probably should be a fairly good publicity for my system. The fact that we can see the same thing repeating left and right means that if it works, it's replicable, and that's things you should be looking at as a trader. Okay, sorry, I'm too tired to explain the setup, but I assume that if you watch the stream, you see what I'm seeing. All right, lads, I'm going to shut the stream off now. It's been a little bit more than 2 hours. Very good stream. If I had to say one thing before leaving is that keep an eye on the Bitcoin lower time frame development. H4 trend is your main focus short term, but as usual, when we have this kind of lower time frame volatility, the 15-minute and 1 hour trend can be very useful not to fade the move too early and or to play some continuations. If you don't want to go in anything lower than H4, then from here, any retest of the 106, 105 region, so confluence of H4 trend and local resistance, is a must hold. If it's defended, you should assume continuation. If it's lost, that's your signal of weakness to back out. I would keep a very close eye on ETH. First, I would keep a very close eye on how Bitcoin closes the daily and if it keeps this momentum going into the daily close. When the daily is closed, you want to see how /ETH Ethereum picks up some momentum. If that's the case and Bitcoin behaves post daily close, maybe we have a window for alts to catch up and ETH to catch up, particularly between the daily close and the New York Open window. You will have access to all of those chat requests in my Telegram free channel where I'm sharing daily updates on Bitcoin, daily H4 as detailed as possible. I try to give the short-term focuses of the day. Discussed H1 200 EMA extensively last week. Yesterday it was the 104, 105 retest. I will drop the link of the Telegram in the chat if you are not there already and you want to join. And thanks everyone for joining. It's been a mega stream, as you said. Thank you everyone very much for the chat request, for the questions. I will let you guys know when it's the next public stream. Could be next week, not 100% certain. But in any case, follow me on Twitter and everywhere, and I will let you guys know when I will be streaming. If you want more of these kind of streams, don't forget that I do this kind of stream 2 times per week in the Haven, where I'm where I have 5 other analysts doing the same thing than me with their proper system. I believe it's a very good place to speedrun your learning process. If you feel like you could be interested, you can have access to a link to join, whether it's my bio on Twitter or my bio on Telegram. I will add this link to the chat request in case you're interested to join. Don't hesitate to do so, obviously. And if you haven't, also follow that YouTube channel so that you can receive notifications next time I'm going live. And happy new all-time high to everyone. Celebrate it. We have enough shitty days in the market to celebrate the good days. So be happy about that. And I will see you all on CT and next time on stream.